Okay, we are jumping back into the closing arguments of the Murdaugh trial. Trying to find the right feed. I've never seen the law and crime feed buried so low. Okay, we are late to the game. I had to get some snacks. They were last outlining the timeline that Alex Murdaugh claimed, and it did not seem to be going too well for the defense. But let's see how it's going right now.
Very specific recollections for y'all when he testified with his new story. Never been heard until last week.
Let me share the link with my mom and sister.
Did he not know? Rogan Gibson told me about
My only audience.
the dog's tail and somebody saying his leg was broken.
And my wife, of course.
Well, right there, he was down in the kennels. Shaking his head forward.
You were just down there with Paul. You left. You went back to the hospital. You know, I mean, Paul and I were just knocking around up in the shop, the shed, the kennels, and just the whole property. And that was before dinner yesterday. And you didn't go back down here after dinner until your return trip from visiting your mother? Yes, sir. I've got information that Paul's on the phone. And Maggie was heard in the background. And you were in the background. And that was prior to the I heard Rogan Gibson.
So this is the confrontation moment.
I was up there and he said he thought it was me. Was it you? At 9 o'clock? Yes, sir. No, sir. My times are right. Who do you think it could have been? I have no idea. And Rogan's been around your family for pretty much all of his life. Oh, absolutely. And he recognizes your voice. You have a distinct voice. You think anybody else that has a voice similar to yours that he may have misinterpreted? No, sir. You know, we were talking, he had asked me that, so, I mean, he had told me, and he thought I was up there. Did that surprise him? Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a lie. These feel like significant lies when they talk about like the financial stuff or like whatever, or like the pills. That's when it kind of starts to feel like a stretch. You should stick to murder lies. We have two people watching now.
what it indicates. When it advise everyone there would be likely to be sealed exhibits. I don't think y'all know quite yet. I'll let you know for sure. You guys went out to the scene today, and you saw how it looks now. Take a good look at those trees and where they were back in the day of the incident. I'll put this up on the Yomo in a second. And you can see the proximity of the kennels to that residence back on June 7th, 2021. Can I have the Yomo, please?
Oh, we lost an audience member. We're not a lot to react to, honestly. I wish they would show us these. What are they hiding from him? Well, I'm famous.
There's not images of the PowerPoint, but I do have these right here.
You are losing the crowd.
Dr. Raymer, you've heard from Dr. Raymer, you heard from Kenny Kinsey, and you heard from the defense experts. So, can I have the computer back? Paul, first blast to the chest, stippling, arms down.
Terrible PowerPoints.
Shot blast to the chest. This is where there was some dispute from the defense experts. The second injury went into the left shoulder, into the cheek, with an exit wound on the top of the head, with instantly fatal and terminal collapse. Dr. Reamer's done 5,500 autopsies. She does an independent autopsy. She actually physically examined the victim, and she was very clear that it could not have happened from the top without destroying Paul's face. And I could show the image again. I'm reluctant to because I know y'all have seen it enough. So I'll rely on y'all to recall that his face was intact.
They keep describing these images. It's hard not to want to see them.
And this is sealed. All the evidence up top here, at the top of the door. I will rely on y'all to recall Kenny Kinsey's testimony that buckshot don't reverse course, that kinetic energy is going in one direction. I'll rely on y'all to recall.
Look, even
biological matter that you see
prosecution
at the top
lawyers
of
are
the door.
yawning.
I'll rely on y'all to recall, looking at states 339, which is the wadding from the shot to kill Paul. Because if you recall, the wadding from the chest shot was found still in his chest right here. This is the wadding on the ground from the shot to his head. And one of the things that you recall from Dr. Reamer's testimony and looking at Paul's face was the abrasions around that cheek wound that came from the wadding as it entered there.
I can't believe they don't let the jurors take notes. At this point, it's like, what are you talking about?
From Dr. Reamer that the reason for
Or it
the
might be
shape
on.
the shoulder was because it went along the shoulder.
Like, the whole crime scene action was real hard to visualize until they actually acted it out yesterday. But people are already exhausted by now.
Testified that if it was here, that force would not have left his face intact. Manner of death homicide. Then you heard from Dr. Kenny Kinsey. What we described earlier, Paul was first shot in the feed room, largely agrees with her. Arms were not up. He believes the shot was a little closer and the lack of stippling could be chalked up to the black t-shirt, but also agrees, as she does, no defensive wounds. Looking at the blood spatter locations there, and he testified in great detail and testified yesterday, there was no high-velocity blood spatter on the ground at the entrance to the feed room, which
It's
would
a
be necessary
terrible
for the
visual
shot
aid
to occur
again.
in the manner in which the defense suggested.
Mm-mm-mm.
The spatter travels upward in an upward direction. You can see that on the door. He spoke of the void area, and then he spoke of the blood on the ground that was around where Paul drops, and that it's low-speed spatter. He talked about the dents in the feed room door, the pellet lodged in the door frame upward. It's only possible if it's traveling through Paul's head. Not possible if it's from a ricochet, as the defense suggested.
Are you allowed to use, like, props and stuff in closing arguments? Because it seems like this would be the time to do really impactful, demonstrative proving of your point. Instead, I'm having to read and listen.
What else did he say? Dr. Kinsey said that he, I think, 36 times that he's observed contact wounds to the head with a shotgun, including one that happened in front of him, actually observed it. And he also said that any sort of contact wound like that would have destroyed the head and destroyed the face. And he was clear about that. He's actually seen them. And I think what you see with the defense experts is they're coming to you with absolutes to try to make you consider that there's the possibility that a crime scene can definitively establish whether there's one or two shooters or whether or not they're of a certain height. And that's just not how it works. And you heard that from Dr. Kinsey. That's not how it works. Not how it worked in this scene. It's a red herring, ladies and gentlemen. It's a red herring. You've seen the testimony from Kenny Kinsey. It returned.
You know, I know they don't think the prosecution doesn't think the opioid addiction is real, but this man kind of acts like an addict to me.
You saw the demonstration over there in the
Always doing stuff like this.
Does that seem realistic to you? Or is Kenny Kinsey's explanation consistent with the evidence, consistent with his experience, consistent with Dr. Reamer's 5,500 autopsies who actually observed the victims, consistent with the blood spatter, the lack of high velocity on the floor, but the existence of high velocity on the top, and the low velocity blood splatter on the floor? What's consistent with the evidence?
I don't know, is there anything about this case that actually isn't insane? Even the actual physics of how the murder was carried out.
To her abdomen and her leg on a parallel path.
I've never heard of a brain being blown out, hitting 3 parts of a doorway, and then landing by someone's feet.
Bends over.
It's a lot.
Maybe on her hands and knees in pain. You saw me demonstrate that with both Dr. Reamer and Kenny Kinsey. And that's when she suffers that third rifle injury. And you heard their expert come in and say, no, it had to be going this way instead of this way. Going up with that graze, hitting her breast and into her head here. And Dr. Reamer actually performed the autopsy physically. She looked at the hole. She described the hole. She talked about the injury coming up into the head. And she showed you that. And she took issue with this.
Apparently she didn't look at the hole though, because she didn't shave around it.
About directionality. But what she told you is, I looked at
Which
this
of course the defense will mention.
as it went up into the brain. This was an entrance wound up into the head. Instantly fatal and terminal collapse. The wrist wound could have been an extraneous wound, or it could be associated with this. Third rifle injury, and then of course the fourth rifle injury to the back of the head. The head canyon effect. Would have been instantly fatal.
What's a canyon effect?
That this one, there has to be some clearance for that third shot to come up. Again, manner of death.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, so that years from now you can say you're the first to like and subscribe.
So what did Dr. Kinsey say? Yeah. He took issue with an expert coming in and trying to tell you that he can determine the location or the height of the shooter in this manner. He told you the cardboard, that cannot be relied upon. And while he did agree with the angle on the doghouse, he showed you how changing the aspect of the shooter can easily fit with Alec. And that
This center angle is not helpful at all.
to try to assert
Long crime.
that you can determine from such information that
If
the
you're
shooter
watching.
had to be 5'2".
You should
That's
fix
not
it.
what you can do. Dr. Kinsey is a crime scene analyst. How many crime scenes did he say he'd done? Hundreds of homicides, thousands of pieces of evidence, real world stuff. That's what he comes and talks about. And you simply can't make those determinations in a real world environment to come in here and try to tell you that from that sort of thing the shooter had to be a particular height. You just can't do it. You can't do it. I submit to you that Dr. Kinsey knows what he's talking about. And Dr. Kinsey has the years of experience in real-world applications of crime scenes to make those judgments. And I also submit to you that Dr. Kinsey isn't going to get out over his skis and try to make assertions to you in absolutes. The guy with the 5'2" people refused to even concede the possibility of variables. But Dr. Kinsey knows that that's how reality works, and he's not going to get out over his skis and try to tell you something that simply cannot be supported by the evidence. And that's what the defense expert did. The shooter could easily be 6'4" or taller.
There's just something real ineffective about this dude.
Of course, one thing
They should put on the
defense expert didn't consider
Attorney General who was on yesterday. Much more effective. You could follow.
little gray people.
This dude like tries to. He thinks emotion is his
No consideration
skill. It's not.
of kneeling,
It's not.
sitting, of being in any sort of different position. But the reality is, these are fluid.
He comes across like he needs to win this
Is running to
for his job.
She's moving. And when she gets hit, most likely when she hits her leg against that Polaris, there's biological evidence on that Polaris. And she comes forward and collapses as Alec is moving around her, firing. They had that came in, was it yesterday, the day before? Even I've lost track of time at this point. But tried to get out over his skis again and testify to you that it had to be two shooters because there were two guns. And why would you not just use the blackout? Is that opinion?
Guns have crazy names.
Sense?
Blackout.
Knowing what you know about this case.
That's actually the only
knowing
name I
what you
know.
about
That's a crazy
firearms
name.
in this particular house, and knowing what you know about Alec Murdaugh as you look at the rest of this evidence.
Letters and numbers are crazy names too. AK-47 is a crazy name. AR-15 is a crazy name.
Kenny Kinsey told you that it's just as likely.
Guns are crazy.
One shooter and.
This just really kind of feels like it is flat
And although this is not
stuff.
You have the feed room right here.
Yeah, let's see some visual
Flashes
aids.
right here. And the cases, while they can't be relied upon as specific location, they still can be illustrating general area, and they're all
Bruh.
that area moving from here to here.
I feel like we need to let him start all over. Start over, Waters. Start over with this diagram thing.
GSR on the defendant's hand on the seatbelt.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 15-minute break.
I know, because he's boring us.
Not discuss the case.
Like, he has no concept of time because he's just talking. Alright, well, let's see if anything happening in the chat. No, there's nothing in the chat, so we're just gonna sit here and do other things. Like, I wonder what happened on the site visit. I don't know.
Take a 15-minute recess.
15-minute recess. Alright, I too am gonna go to the monkey bars.
You can tell that. And while they are taking their break, gives us a great opportunity to chat with some experts here. In the studio with me, I have Jonna Spilmore. That's quite the pleasure. She's with us from
This is fun.
a little further north in New York. Good to have you, criminal defense attorney. And of course, Bob Murdaugh is here. He is the host of the podcast Defense Diaries. He is a criminal defense attorney.
And Tommy Mitchell, host of
Jonna,
Now the Lawyer Tommy.
give me your thoughts out of the gate on this guy so far. What do you think?
Creighton Waters is handling the closing the same way he handled the trial, and that is
Terribly.
we got a little too much stuff, right? I think he's at this point maybe putting more than the defense attorneys to sleep.
Yeah, it's like what are you talking about?
And I gotta tell you something. I don't know if he's doing himself any favors, because as I listen to him lay out his version, and it's his version of what happened. I was telling you off air, I don't think John Grisham could write a script as tight as Creighton Waters wants us to believe that this defendant did. I mean, he would have to be a diabolical rocket scientist to say, okay, at this minute I'm going to do this, and at that minute I'm going to do that. And after killing his wife and kid, I'm not buying it. He's not selling me, but he didn't sell me during the trial.
Interesting.
So,
See, I think he did it. I just think they have a bad case.
On your point about what he's had to work with, because there has been a lot.
Or is that what she's saying too?
And ask you this, Bob. I did a little research while I was listening to the closing. I think it's so important to entertain the jury, the most important audience in that room. And when you've got so much stuff to work with, you should use it, visuals. People are more likely, how much more likely? 60,000 times as likely to remember an image as they are text. We saw a timeline that I wouldn't even call a timeline, because a timeline is called a timeline for a reason. You plot things along. And he went with his stack of facts, which might be okay, but most people are not that receptive to that kind of presentation. So Give me your thoughts on just the mechanics of this closing.
Terrible.
Especially in closing, would be super effective if the jury had notebooks. I mean, that's the thing that just keeps it's driving me nuts, to be honest with you.
Yes, that is insane.
Demonstrative evidence, whether he had done it in a PowerPoint, presentation with some kind of Getty images, which I thought was very weird, or in the way you're suggesting, which would have made much more sense, which is basically to give a timeline, plot out all the times.
Yeah, anything more helpful than his, I just found out about PowerPoint. PowerPoint.
To write anything down. I just think that that's going to be a major issue for them back in deliberations. I really do.
Yeah, and it's we never know why a judge allows or doesn't certain things within the courtroom, but I think in this case screams for, in this case like any other, really screams for a notebook. John, let me ask you, they did the site visit earlier today, which I think should have been done early on.
I know. They should have done that like day one.
For things to come in trial, but hey, they at least got to do that. So important to see where Paul's body was, where Maggie's body was, whether you're leaning toward the two-person shooter theory or the defendant did it. All of that stuff's so important, and the distance between the kennels and the main house for all of these time periods that the prosecution relies on so much. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm also a little bit confused why they did it. Why not take a field trip at night? Because that's how dark it was at the hour that this allegedly happened at that time of year. We're in a whole different time of year. They went at a whole different time of day. But I do think, and it probably should have happened earlier. I also think some of the jurors may have had a hard time emotionally because they've seen all this graphic evidence. They've seen where two people lost their lives, and then you go there. It had to be a little bit eerie for some of them. But I do think it's important to see two things. How far the kennels were from the tree line to see, is it possible that two people could have ambushed Maggie and Paul? And two, like you said, to see exactly how far it is from the house to the kennels. According to my calculations, and I went to law school because I stink at math, it's about 5 city blocks. So is it possible that Alex Murdaugh didn't know what was going on if he were still in the house when it was going on? And we don't really know that because we don't have an exact
It's gonna fire.
And I have to imagine, some of the staining from where Paul was killed might still be there on the concrete. I mean, this was just less than 2 years ago. So, Bob, as you look at the presentation of the prosecution here, one thing I think they did well was they did use the video from the very first interview in the car, and then also from the later interrogation at the cop shop there. And they make it very clear that, yeah, we know this guy's a liar. Boy, he knows how to lie. But did they make the point when it came to that period of time where he was napping, that we now know he was not, that it's going to win the day with this jury? That's a huge point.
Yeah, Bob.
I mean, frankly, that's where their entire case lies, on whether or not the jury buys the fact that he cannot come up with any kind of reasonable explanation of what he was doing in that, whatever it could be 4, could be 7 minutes of time. And I've had many discussions offline about this, and the
Maybe it was a power nap.
If he's not the guy, that's not that unusual in terms of not remembering every single thing that you made.
Let's not forget about power naps.
Don't know that had taken place. Now, if he is the guy, obviously, if he comes up with just a completely solid, like I knew what I did from second to second, then that almost seems prepared. So to me, it's kind of a lose-lose situation, which was always the risk of putting Murdaugh on the stand, in terms of him being able to come up with viable excuses as to what he was doing during that time frame. So I don't know how it's going to play out. I think at the end of the day, the bigger question for me, because that timeline really plays both ways. If it's true that he was 3 feet away from Paul when he was shot, the amount of biological material that would have been rejected onto him or thrust upon him would have been massive. And that's a very short amount of time in order for him to be able to clean up to the extent that he can get in a car and drive over to his mother's house, knowing that he's going to run into Shelley, knowing that there's going to be somebody who sees him, So that timeline is really tough, and frankly, it's what has me sitting on the fence as to whether or not he did it or not. I mean, that one thing alone It's the one thing I just can't reconcile.
Yeah, unfortunately, it does feel like there is
Maybe it'd be
doubt
nice if
here.
somebody really give us a number they can rely on, but the ME doesn't even give you the time of death. And when the guy who's the administrator who checks temperatures by armpit, he said it was between 8 and 10, and then just put 9 on the death certificate. It's kind of in the middle of my range. I think that's you're dying to find out, so to speak, what the time of death was, because everything hinges on that, and we don't have it in this case. Let's take a break here. They are on a break.
Is that a so to speak, or is that a
The prosecution's closing argument. We'll come right back.
pun? Exciting. Well, we have two audience members. Don't forget, this weekend is the raffle for our Patreon members. If you aren't a member of the Patreon, just go to notaLawyerTommy, patreon.com/notaLawyerTommy, and if it doesn't exist, let me know so I can make a Patreon at that address. And, yeah. Okay, so, we'll be right back. No, we will not. Let's check them on my audience. Let's see what the comments say. Guilty, hung jury. Now he's showing contempt. Arrogant, he did it. Guilty. Stop with the comments on looks. Elevate the convo. Just moving so fast. Chat and life. Just move too fast. Can't stand his smug face. Great job being done. Alex conveniently has no emotion today. Guilty as charged. Not guilty. Murder. Guilty of being a con man. I know that's kind of how I feel also. I'm not convinced that this should be a guilty verdict, unfortunately. But obviously he's facing really serious financial crime charges, which he's already admitted to, which apparently can get him life. So why even talk about them so much in this trial then? I don't know. We're gonna do a how do you create polls? We're gonna try and find out. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, so am I managing? Will it know that this is me? Oh yeah. Okay. I've actually never done this before. Okay, so wow. So how do you start a thing? Wait, no, that is me. Oh wow. Yeah. Got it. Okay, we're starting a poll. Of course, this one's easy. Alex Murdaugh do it? Wow. So how do you start a thing? Oh wow. Got it. Let me ask my community. Okay, we're starting a poll. Of course, this one's easy. Did Alex Murdaugh do it? Wow. So how do you start a thing? Oh wow. Got it. Let me ask my community. Okay, we're starting a poll. I really need a second monitor. Of course, this one's easy. Well, I have a new subscriber. Thank you to, I would like to thank, Mrs. Pam Mitchell has subscribed to you on YouTube. Wow, thank you. I think I know who that is. I call her mom. Thank you for your subscription. Yeah. Well, I have a new subscriber. Thank you. Any polls? I would like to thank. Mrs. Pam Mitchell has subscribed to you on YouTube. Wow, thank you. I think I know who that is. I call her mom. Subscription. Yeah. Okay, so no results to the poll. And where are the people? I feel like our 15-minute break should be over now. I don't have any other new subscribers yet, so I just again want to really thank my latest subscriber. In the meantime, while we wait, we also have another feature that we do here, where we look for houses for sale near the courthouse. So this is our last hunt, but this is obviously not near there. But while we wait, we're just gonna look again, and we know that this is in Walterboro, so let's just go ahead and. We also have another. I'll just put in Walterboro, where we look for houses for sale near the courthouse. Okay, so again, I think we have just a couple more minutes left until the jury comes back. So just going to remove this boundary now that we're here. Just put in Walterboro. Not too many options. Okay, so again, I think we have just a couple more minutes left. Let's zoom in a little more. There must be more options than this. Now, where is this echo coming from also? It was from my own thing. Alright, let's see. Roundo, do I have filters on or something? Oh, I have a bunch of filters on from previous searches, of course. So we just want to reset all filters. We're just looking for the latest things to drop in Walterboro and Cottageville. So, or we can sort by homes for me also, but no. We let's do the latest things. Well, these are also kind of latest things to drop. All these nice homes in Cottageville. Walterboro. We're actually going to do the newest. Okay, 3 hours ago. Islandton. Now, Islandton is interesting because that is actually technically where Moselle is. Moselle is in Islandton, which is another unincorporated part of Colleton County. Let's see where Islandton is over here on the map. Yeah, so it's over here. Okay, so this got interesting. So let's see. So these are houses for sale near the kennels, as they call them, near Moselle. Zillow, struggling. We are still on break. Looks like. Oh, no, we're back.
All right, let's bring them in.
All right, let's make sure everything is set here. All right, everything is set. I learned a lot in this whole trial thing. Like, I had no idea what a research attorney was. But I did find it very interesting at certain points when one attorney would have an objection for like a 404 rule or something more obscure, because it seems like 404 happens a lot. And no matter how obscure or how just every rule that came up, the judge had a book open to the page and he was like reading, well, according to it, yada yada yada. And he just had that ready to go. And I'm like, is the judge just following along like that? And it turns out, no, he's not. But the research attorney is. Well, what an interesting job. All right, let's see what Creighton Waters has going now.
On defendant's hands and seatbelt. Maggie's DNA on that Super Black Eagle.
Slightly better visual aids.
No DNA or blood identified on the floorboards. Showing y'all state 7. That's the how you doing comment. And the second officer walks up, how you doing? States 5. Also from the body cam.
How you doing is a weird greeting when your family just got murdered.
It can be when the lights are on. 22. 93. 47.
Who voted this man to do this? Something just
We'll talk finally a little bit
feels
more about
ineffective.
the defendant's story to you that he told on Thursday. We've already talked about it. Just a couple more things. I asked him when he went down there, those dogs are clearly out in the kennel video. I asked him if the dogs were alerting on anybody nearby or in the woods, as dogs do. And he said no. He said that their dogs were not doing that. You heard about the fact that he changed clothes, and you also heard testimony that his clothes smelled fresh and like laundry.
Is him mentioning the dogs hearsay for the dogs?
Manufacturing the scene.
Should have been brought up a long time ago, I guess.
You heard from his law partners.
Maybe the dogs are in on it.
That he was not, and also from Marion, that he was not overly concerned with figuring out what happened or any threats to Buster. And in fact, you heard in the telephone interview after the side of the road, they specifically asked him, are there any threats to Buster? And he said no. Why is there no threat to Buster? Because he was the threat to Maggie and Paul.
Or because he knows who the threat is, which is some doubt you need to work harder to eliminate.
That's why he called Rogan first the night of. He knows the only threat is him. I asked him if he can remember lying to all of those close to him, people that he trusted, that he stole from. He couldn't detail one single conversation. He couldn't remember his last conversation at the kennels. To use his own words, and when you hear what he has to say, when he was asked after the kennel video and his new story, what he did, he said, I got out of there. He's got that photographic memory, but can't remember what he was doing when he was his most active on that day. He didn't say, if only I had been there. If only I had gone to the kennels. If only I could have stopped it. If only I had been there a little longer. He says, I got out of there. What father would hold anything back if he were innocent? What father would care what happens to him after that? He claims he told you that he had cooperated with Slim. But he hadn't. There's nothing more important if someone's innocent telling law enforcement when the last time the victims were alive. I just saw them. I saw them at 8:50. I saw them at 8:49. They're still out there. Go get them.
This is not proving that he pulled the trigger, though, and there's so much evidence that he
mentioned paranoia.
May not have, so that feels more important to me.
10 years ago, and he confused David Owen with David Williams. He got on the stand, ladies and gentlemen, and as he got confronted with things, as he was allowed to keep talking, he kept adding a new factor and a new factor and a new factor to justify why he's lying to you, why he had lied to law enforcement, and to justify why he's telling you what he's telling you now. He kept adding them. He can remember those, ladies and gentlemen. He can remember a new one. He can remember this. And the problem with that is that there's no mistaking David Owen for David Williams. We showed you that picture of David Williams.
We're all confused. Everyone, the danger here is the complexity. The prosecution is getting lost in the complexity. They don't know how exactly to sharpen the sword they need to put through the defense. The jury is going to get lost in complexity, and that's only going to play into the defense's hands. This is tough, man. Is defense is a word? Or is it like deer?
The guy got caught flat-footed with the badge hanging out of his pocket. He tried to assert to you that sometime maybe it was an accident, that this badge is hanging out of his pocket. How was that an accident?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
See how quickly he was able to lie? But more importantly, the blue lights. He sat there and told you 3 times, I think he said his name 3 times, that Sheriff Smalls, the former sheriff of Hampton County, gave him permission to put blue lights in a private vehicle for a part-time assistant solicitor. And blue lights in a private vehicle. He told you 3 times, effortlessly got up there, pivoted, and lied to you. Because Sheriff Smalls came in here and said, of course not. That never happened. I've never heard of such a thing.
Weak.
This is a man.
Why is that even part of your, like, I guess you're trying to do character building, but
He lied about the most important fact in the case, and he sat there.
there are stronger arguments, I think.
When confronted with something he wasn't prepared for. And the sheriff came in here and said, no, that never happened.
There are 5 counties, like, that's so easy to be like, oh, like,
Looked you all in the eyes and told
you know.
Looked you all in the eyes.
And they mentioned that there was someone else who, like, he connected with.
As if, what's your problem, Mr.
This is a terrible thing to be harping on.
Tries to tell you that he was paranoid about having a bag of pills in his pocket. The man who had blue lights in his car and had a badge, rides around with a badge in his windshield. That's what he thinks of his power and prestige, and that's what he thinks of appropriate use of authority, is to put it up there. It only serves him. It's only there to serve him. He's trying to also tell you that he gets paranoid, and so he's tried to lie about the most important fact that he can offer law enforcement when his wife and son were brutally murdered because he had a bag of pills in his pocket. But yet at the same breath says, I'm not concerned about the law firm and that fair stuff. I'm not concerned about the boat case. Why would he lie about that time unless he's manufacturing an alibi? And that's just why.
Normally, you want to feel like pauses are used, you know, for you use them strategically. I feel like he uses them genuinely to just get himself together, kind of.
That lie that he told you. He tried to make it seem like he'd been trying to tell this, but he also admitted on the stand that, and as did his brother, that his own brothers heard it for the first time last week. That his own attorney was repeating the story that he was napping the whole time and never went to the kennels on HBO in November, just a couple months ago.
Does the jury know this is on HBO? Are they able to watch that?
A lot of people lie, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people lie. When it's really important. Something like this. It's brutal murder. Most people are going to come clean about a bag of pills. But why do people lie? People lie because they knew they did something wrong. That's why he lied, ladies and gentlemen. And just like always, when confronted with new evidence that he no longer can deny, he backtracks, he pivots, and he tells a new story from that stand and looks you all in the eye. And then when new evidence comes up on cross, he backtracks and he pivots and he tells another new lie.
We get it. He's a liar.
And I'm sure if he could get up there again, he'd be telling, well, let me rephrase that. He said so many witnesses are lying on him. They're all lying on him. But the one thing we know is a constant is that he lied to them. Mark Tinsley's lying. Jeannie Secondger's lying. Shelley Smith is lying. Blanca's lying. Everybody's lying on the master liar.
I don't know what lies he said that Jeannie and Seconder and Mark Tinsley made. Jeannie Seconder being the CFO of the law firm formerly known as PMPED. Mark Tinsley being the attorney representing the Mallory representing Mallory Beach's family, who died in the boat crash.
Now we know he was lying.
Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can tell everyone you were the first to like and subscribe. Oh, and I just want to thank again my first,
One thing I will agree with
my mom, one of my first subscribers.
there. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first.
I agree with her. He is guilty as charged.
How appropriate coming from that.
If there are any lawyers out there, let us know in the comments. How do teams normally decide who does the closing arguments? I feel like the state needed one more month or something.
On an idea that he was at the kennels, that he jetted back, that he went inside so quickly and quickly dozed off on the shortest nap in the history of the South. And then he got in his car.
Shortest nap in the history of the South is funny.
Just seconds after these supposed vigilantes. These vigilantes that apparently are 5'2", that knew somehow that Paul and Maggie would be both at Moselle on the evening of June 7th between 8:44 and 9:02, that also knew that they would be alone at this time. That they knew that Alec would not be at these kennels. And they also knew the property well enough to get to the kennels. They also assumed that they would find ammunition and guns there, so they didn't bring those. And they traveled the same route as Alec after his short 20-second nap, and knew that he would be visiting his mother at Alameda during that time. Those are the circumstances that you have to accept. 5'2" vigilantes that arrived somehow in that tiny time period between 8:49 and 9:02, and that's given him every bit of.
See, my thing is that's not exactly what I understand the defense to be arguing, and the fact that he is kind of exaggerating even a little bit what the defense is trying to argue makes me suspicious of the prosecution. And I feel like that is just not necessary in this case, I guess.
And these vigilantes were just lucky enough to find these family weapons there, which he's clear on the other side of it that he says were never there. He's so clear. Oh, we never had the blackout. We never rode around with the blackout.
What I can't believe is that the blackout gun isn't all black. Why would you get a blackout gun that's tan and camo? Why would you make one that comes in any other color?
No one knew who he was.
So the way I understand it, it goes prosecution, defense, prosecution. I think that's great because he needs a second chance at all this.
He'd avoided accountability his whole life. He had relied on his family name. He had a powerful family. He carried a badge and used that authority. He lived a wealthy life. But now finally, he was facing complete ruin. His father, who he idolized, who I worked with on occasion, was dying. His son was facing charges for the boat case. He was facing a civil action that not only could potentially ruin him, but expose the reality of what he'd been doing for years. He had an opiate addiction. The entire illusion of his life was about to be altered. He couldn't live for that. He's the kind of person for which shame is an extraordinary provocation.
He loves that phrase.
It's an extraordinary provocation. His ego couldn't stand that, and he became a family annihilator. And I was thinking, that people who get the last word in this courtroom are y'all. And a lot of witnesses have testified over the last 6 weeks, but there's a couple that never get to testify but are important, and that's common sense and human nature. And there's two more that don't get to testify. We couldn't bring you any eyewitnesses because they were murdered. But common sense and human nature can speak on behalf of Maggie and Paul. When you look at this in its totality, common sense and human nature can speak for them. They deserve a voice.
If I'm the defense, I'm like,
Everything
there's one
you
thing
did
we know: humans are
was
unpredictable.
To try to frustrate the forensics as a lawyer and a prosecutor with the two guns and the manufactured alibi, and not taking his phone down to the scene, deleting call logs, making short phone calls, bringing up the boat case, moving Maggie's phone, changing clothes, looking at Paul's phone, calling Rogan, or trying to call Rogan. One man controlled this crime scene initially, and that was Alvin. But there were some things he couldn't control. And we brought those to you. A couple things that the defendant said that I agree with. It said, whoever did this had anger in his heart. Whoever did this planned it for a long time. That he hurt the ones who were closest to him. It may be hard to fathom, ladies and gentlemen, that when you put all these circumstances together and really understand who he was in the entirety of his life, and the pressures that he was facing from what he had been doing for so long.
It's probably his most effective moment.
And understand it.
Because he keeps his arm up. I feel like he read that somewhere.
There was one mistake, though, he didn't expect. And this is why he was worried about Paul's phone. This is why he's trying to get in touch with Rogan. And it was that kennel video that came up late in the investigation. One of the things I asked him, and we've talked about
Can they
this,
put the center camera on like
last question I had to him,
other people in the audience or
first question
something?
I had to him,
It's a zoomed out photo
what is the most
shot
important
of
part of your testimony here today? And he wouldn't even concede that.
really nobody.
But he at least conceded that the most important thing was to look you in the eye, try to explain to you why, after his entire history, you should believe him when he says, okay, I was down in the kennels for one brief minute, but I had nothing to do with this. We went through that long cross in which he identified all these factors, from his partner saying you need to have an attorney present, to his distrust of SLED, to Dave Owen asking him about his relationship. And I asked him, at what point did you decide to lie? And he finally agreed, okay, it was in this interview. It was that moment in the June 8th interview. It was during that interview. But in his 911 call, ladies and gentlemen, at 10:06, when he was asked when he last saw them, he said an hour and a half, and then changed it to approximately 2 hours. Consistent with what he would later say. Before any of those factors that he sat there and ran through with y'all is the reason for his decision even ever existed. And if that's not enough, ladies and gentlemen, you saw, and I played it for him, Daniel Green's body cam, where he was asked the same question. And he said that it was 1.5 hours plus 45 minutes. All those factors that he identified to you as to why he supposedly lied, he was lying to you, ladies and gentlemen, when he made those up.
That's weak too. There's so much evidence of people just not knowing what's what after traumatic events. That's like so easy to argue. Show me some physical evidence.
He's good at it.
That's why this is tricky.
He's good at it.
Now, according to Reddit, there's this kind of conspiracy theory that he was all connected with the pills to the cartel, and they kind of could have come along and like done an execution style thing here. That sounds kind of extreme, but how do we know nothing has happened yet? Or like how they haven't proved that nothing like that has happened. I like talked over that thing, but it was nothing we haven't heard. Hopefully they play it again, though.
Motive. The means. The opportunity, and ample evidence of guilty conduct, guilty conscience. All four factors are present. And Maggie and Paul deserve a voice. They need a voice because they can no longer speak.
Maggie and Paw
This
Paw.
has been a tough job. But the system depends on people who take that oath as jurors and are willing to honor that oath and make that tough decision to vindicate these victims, to vindicate Maggie and Paul.
You know what? The prosecution's actual closing will probably be, or whatever it's called, will probably be better because it will be a rebuttal in response, I guess, to the defense. So it will probably be a little more focused. I think the issue here is like they're just trying to. They have so many different angles they want to come from.
This is what he did. This is what he did. Right here. This defendant, on the other hand, has fooled everyone who thought they were close to him, everyone who thought they knew he
What is he showing when he says this is what he did right here? I hope not more photos of the body. That's what I'm saying. Like, these tactics just come off as desperate and grasping at straws. You don't need to be showing the jury this kid with his brain blown out and his mom gunned down every day to prove your point.
On behalf of the state of
It
South
seems like you're
Carolina,
trying.
I ask you to return a verdict of guilty against the defendant, Richard Alexander Murdaugh, for the murder of his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul, for his possession of firearms during the commission of those malicious offenses.
The middle camera and the right camera subject are both lost. Alright, Waters.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, that will be it for this day. We'll resume at 9:30 tomorrow morning. If you go to the jury room, and you'll be dismissed in just a few minutes from the jury room. Please do not discuss the case at all with anyone, including your fellow jurors.
Now what? Okay, so I guess that's this day one of closing. So that recaps the day today. The jury started out by going out and visiting Moselle, and oh my gosh, people voted. But how do you see the? And then we had the closing arguments. Now what's happening? Let's see.
We'll recess until 9:30 tomorrow morning, except for the matter that we will address in chambers with counsel.
Wonder what that is. Okay, so going back to this little Reddit theory. So the theory is that well, here's really what's going on here. I guess we can just do if you look on the Google Maps satellite view, you can actually see, this is also mentioned briefly in the Netflix documentary, but there's actually an airstrip on the Moselle property that the Murdaughs would apparently use. And the Reddit conspiracy theorists are like, well, yeah, all that money, he was either shoveling pills out of the state or bring them in, and his little cousin was all involved. Here's the runway right here. It's apparently pretty long and pretty wide. It was built by a previous owner, but it does look like it gets some use, and they clearly have kept it kind of defined. So everyone's argument is like that's like a thing. But my thought is, whether that is true or not, has it been proven that there aren't two shooters and that like someone wasn't like standing there like doing this some torture thing? Like, couldn't the defense just make that argument? Well, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Okay, well, we are going to sign off now. Wow, yes, we have 2 votes. Alright, yes, oh, we have 2 new subscribers. Oh, yes, thanks to Heather Mitchell, our new subscriber as well. Alright, we have new subscribers. Oh, and we have a like. Yes, thanks everyone for the support. This channel is for you guys, so you know this would be nothing without that you guys. So don't forget to do what you've already done. All right, well, I clearly have nothing else going on here, so we're gonna close this out just by going back to, okay, see ya.